In a world filled with conflict, in a universe comprised of differences, there's one thing that absolutely everything shares in common. We all exist. Including two guys named Jack and Michael, who like to chat about that very thing over a good cup of coffee. Let's pay them a visit, shall we?
Existence Brewing.
Well, I guess we just have a run of the place today, don't we? Yes, I'll take my...
Nobody here.
Oh, hey, what's happening?
Nobody here. We're all watching the NFL draft.
Oh, that's right. They're probably down at that sports bar. What's the name of that sports bar? Chicks and Wings? Wings and Chicks?
What would a good name for it? If they came to me and said, Jack, you must open a sports bar or it will cost you your soul, but you can name it anything you want.
Yeah. Maybe we should ask Michelle.
How about...
what should we name a sports bar? See if Michelle has any good questions or good answers. The Final Whistle, Overtime Tavern. Ooh, I like it. Overtime. That means like you're trying to seal the deal with that lady that you just met and you're going into overtime. That's never a good thing. The Full Court Press. Ooh, the Dugout. That sounds like almost the name for like one of those other bars.
Lesbian bar.
Yeah. The End Zone. Game day
bar.
Game
for sure. We moved from one team to the next there.
Game Day Grill is another one. Oh, okay. So they even went as far as to say, "Oh, your local hometown." How does she know where I live?
She knows everything.
She knows everything. Man,
I was thinking something like comatose, but still into it and drinking.
Oh, okay.
Maybe something like that. I don't know.
You know, I had a police officer friend who was telling me once we were on patrol and it was late at night, and I said, they got all those guys over there at the local bar, at the local watering hole, and he goes, I'm not concerned about those guys. He goes, those are grizzled drinkers. He's like, the ones you got to be concerned about going on the highway are the ones who are like out for a weekend with Bernie and have had way too much to drink. The seasoned drinkers, you don't have to worry about, he says.
The granite livers, as they're known.
Yeah.
You were out on patrol. Frame this for us.
Yeah.
You weren't a policeman ever, were you? But you thought about it, I know, right?
Well, I was a part of the reserve deputy program with the local sheriff's office, and so I went through this, training and background check and psychological evaluations, and when I'm with my wife and she says that I'm crazy, I can just bring that up. Like, no, I've actually been tested, and I'm not crazy.
At least according to the mainstream.
Yeah.
To the law enforcement mainstream, you're not.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Exactly.
All right. Well, but that lasted briefly, and you decided it wasn't for you.
Yeah, and I'm glad I came to that conclusion because it's a lifestyle that is definitely just that. That's the key word. It's a lifestyle, and I have a lot of respect for public servants in whether it's in the medical field or whether it's in the fire, police, just because it is a lifestyle. And the thing that I found is that I had a hard time putting it away. And I think a lot of people have a hard time with that. They call it the blue world transition, where you're living in the police world and then being able to escape that world with your mind and being able to just kind of relax when you're not on duty can sometimes be a challenge. And I found that that was ultimately the thing that decided for me it was not something that I was cut out for.
I would imagine it would be a difficult life, especially for some people, based on what you see, and then just you kind of have to get in cop mode, go out there to kick ass, and make sure that our street stays safe, and then all of a sudden you got to go home and be the gentleman father.
I had a problem with that, and I also had a problem like just going places with my family, like Red Robin, and then all of a sudden like you're starting to see all these like warning signs, and that's where it was just kind of like, you know what, this is starting to encroach into an area that I'm not happy with. So you got to know when to stop. You got to know when enough's enough. So
position like military officer, policeman could also lead to poor feng shui in the home, because you may start displaying weapons, i.e. firearms. And, someone else who displays firearms, and one of the greatest segues we've had on this show in a while, is U.S. Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee. We got to talk about this guy, Michael, because we're going to revisit a topic that we visited an awful lot in the early days, I guess, of Existence Brewing, and then sort of have dabbled in from there. But I think we need to return to it full circle, because it seems we have a little bit of something happening on at least one of the branches of this UAP, UFO, extraterrestrial phenomenon.
A lot of branches,
isn't there? Well, there's a million places you can go. Let me preface what we're about to hear just by saying this, because it's what he says is fuel for a little slightly different fire. But here's how I found this guy. I was, as we all do, going down rabbit holes on social media. And all of a sudden, when the UAP thing starts getting pumped over to me because I've clicked on this or clicked on that with little green men or, big dark eyes and tiny gray bodies here and there, this fella has done something that few congresspeople or senators or really elected officials at all have ever done. He has come out and said that he has had a conversation with at least one, perhaps more people that are high up in the know in these dark, secret, covert projects, and that they have absolutely certified to him that not only are UAPs, some of them, not all of them, under intelligent extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional control, but there has been contact with human beings from some of these entities. It's been going on for a long time. And he said that if the American public knew what he now knows, none of us would be sleeping at night. Now, that gets us into these remarks, because what led me to this particular video was, I wonder how Stephen Greer feels about this fellow. I found a dual interview with him just today that I could not find just a couple days ago when I found this, which is interesting. So I'm going to be watching that soon, but I literally found it as I was getting this to you today to play for everybody. So play what Mr. Burchett had to say not that long ago. I don't know how old this video is.
It's 1 year old.
It's a year ago.
Yeah.
So a year ago, he said this, and I think you'll get the illusions if you know anything about Dr. Greer and his work.
There is a movement in the UFO community that people are opening themselves to demonic suggestion. I know people are doing seances and things to bring these craft down or in or something like that. And to me, it reeks of a demonic suggestion. You open yourself up to that. My dad used to say, if you open yourself up to that, that's when it happens. And not within the UFO movement. But I worry about that because there is a growing community that's what they do, and they talk about their spiritualism and things like that, and it has all the essence of a classic seance, and I worry about that.
All right, there you go. So obviously he is making a very, very specific allusion to Dr. Greer's CE5 protocol to attempt to call in extraterrestrial craft and beings. Now, I will say this to Mr. Burchett's, potential credit. Nick Redfern, great author who's into all kinds of weird stuff. Nick once said, I write about anything that's weird that I can get my hands on. He wrote a book and I can't remember the name of it. And I looked through all of his titles, or a lot of them, and it didn't ring any bells. But he wrote a book quite a while ago about an actual government project. This was commissioned in the 1940s, right around the time of the Roswell crash, and when everybody got really UFO happy and crazy because people were seeing them so frequently in the skies over U.S. airspace. And apparently the U.S. government commissioned a study through the clergy to investigate what these entities might actually be. Because, of course, at the time, there's a much greater religious presence in the country, and there's a much greater religious presence in government, I think, just from the beliefs of the politicians, not that they're overriding things with their own beliefs. So there's a concern, because what are these beings? After all, we've learned our whole life from the Bible that we're supposed to be it. And all of a sudden, we've got these things that can fly around in these craft that can do loops over our things, and we don't know how they fit into the equation theologically. So we're going to commission a study of the clergy to investigate this. So great reason, right, to do that. Apparently, this study, now you got to remember, take this with 2 grains of salt on your communion wafer, but apparently this study came up with the conclusion. Remember, these are all paneled religious individuals, very spiritual, very, very religious, very organized religion, I should say, not just spiritual. They concluded that these beings were, in fact, of demonic origin. And the only protection from them was a belief in the light, was a belief in the Holy Spirit, and that any belief in that would keep them away from you and keep them from harming you. So this was that panel's conclusion. So there is at least one officially commissioned study by the U.S. government, nonetheless, by a bunch of clergymen who are all about God and devils, nonetheless, that has said that is what they are. So again, I can't completely dismiss that all things aren't possible. You know, that's not the way I feel about it, but it's clear that Mr. Burchett is calling out Stephen Greer's CE5 protocol. Now, what this leads me to, and then these latest things that he's saying, where he's saying that you shouldn't be sleeping at night if you knew what I knew, et cetera, is the fear mongering that Dr. Greer talks about when we start to ramp up to that false flag event. We start to ramp up to that panic and fear when the fake or the hoax alien invasion happens, so that these sons of bitches can get their war in space and bilk us for another $68 trillion worth of hardware, and they get to smoke fat cigars and live life on the golf course and make war, which they love to do. So that's my concern. You know, the theological aspect of it, what they are, is fascinating to me. It always will be. I've decided that they're okay. I think they're beyond okay. In fact, I think they're quite benevolent personally, regardless of what their origins are, spiritually, materially, or otherwise. But this is kind of what really caught my attention. Was this is that fear mongering, and it's coming from someone that is a U.S. congressman. And that is unusual, because usually we don't see people in these high places actually say these kinds of things.
Yeah, and I think Tim Burchett is actually a really good example of what you have witnessed yourself with this video. A year ago, that was him. Now, I think that if anyone is listening to this podcast and interested in seeing it, News Nation and Ross Coulthart is his name. He's an Australian news anchor on News Nation. And News Nation has kind of anchored their flagship reporters on this UAP. I think they've really decided that this is kind of like gold when it comes to a certain population of the audience, because there's a lot of these new videos with Tim Burchett, and I would recommend listening to one that was just like 7 days ago, because you can almost see a evolution that Tim Burchett has taken over just a year now that he has been involved in more of these congressional hearings.
The name of the Nick Redfern book, by the way, I found it. It wasn't that hard. I guess I made it too difficult. Is called Final Events and the Secret Government Group on Demonic UFOs in the Afterlife. Long title, but it was published about 16 years ago in 2010 by Anomalist Books. It's a really fascinating subject, really
And
fascinating read. I
the
would recommend
afterlife.
that.
Wow, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, there is. And with Nick's mind, there usually is a lot going on. But yeah, so you got to wonder, because again, this is a cloak and dagger game to no end. We constantly sit back and wonder who's telling the truth, if they actually know anything, who's not, who's selling out, who's afraid that they're going to be wet, as they say in the CIA business, and their family could be the same. There's all of these different motivations for saying this, that, or the other. And then there's all of these motivations seemingly for turning a 90 or 180 degree angle 6 months later or a year later or 2 years later. Dr. Greer, of course, has remained consistent throughout. And so his position in all of this, regardless of what you think it might be, has remained the same. It seems that Mr. Burchett's has spun a few times based on what he says he's been introduced to. I just think with the current power structure that we have, now would seem to be a ripened vine for this kind of thing to start to go down, for starting the hoax alien invasion. Because, let's face it, I don't like to talk about the president, but he has a love for money. And this is going to bring in an awful lot for the military-industrial complex and anybody who is kind to it or forwards its agenda. And I would think that this would be the best opportunity if you required, and you kind of do need a governmental regime's help. I know this is all being fueled, supposedly, if you believe the conspiracy theory that Dr. Greer has presented. You need, those people are in charge of it, but you need a vehicle that is either unaware and yet by default subconsciously on your side, if you will, or that certainly is into the same business that you can manipulate really easily, that you can say, look, this is what we need you to say because we're telling you this. And you can leak little bits of information here, there, and everywhere. There's a story that I just told on the radio not too long ago. My partner's been let go at the station, but we were talking one morning.
Was he made wet? Was he made wet?
No, because I've talked to him since.
Oh,
or
good.
perhaps who I've talked to since is his AI clone. Maybe they've Taylor Swifted him, and
Oh, no.
that's what he is now. So I don't know. But I think it was Jackie Gleason's birthday, or it was Richard Nixon's birthday. And we were talking about a story that is pretty well known, I think, in the ufology community, about Jackie giving a comedy appearance in South Florida one night, and Nixon being there for it because I believe he vacationed there. And so anyway, they were both there in Miami probably, or Fort Lauderdale or somewhere like that. And it's like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, and Jackie's in his hotel room, and of course he's probably just having a stiff drink and getting ready to go to bed, or I don't know. And the phone rings, and it's President Nixon, and he says, Jackie, would you like to see something you'll never forget in your whole life? And Jackie says, sure, why not? I got nothing else to do. And so off they go to this location that
Mr. President, I'm not that kind of man.
It's a building within a building within a building within a building, the way the story goes, behind a gate, behind a locked gate, behind a gate with a guy. And the guns get progressively larger as you go through each stage of the gate. So Jackie's like, what is all of this stuff? And anyway, the story is that Dick walks him through some series of dark corridors into a room, and then he says, are you ready to see it, Jackie? And off goes the covers, and there is a dead alien entity or extraterrestrial biological entity. And Jackie, according to, again, the story then as it perpetuated within his own realm, people that were close to him that he actually told this story to, because of course he was said, now you can't tell anybody about this, Jackie, not even your wife. She can't know. We might have to do something to her. So he was very guarded about who he told, but apparently the people that he did tell, they later reported that he was shaken to his soul because of this. And I can imagine you would be, you're lying around one night in your hotel room after a comedy club performance, and the next thing you know, the president of the United States is showing you a dead extraterrestrial being from another world.
Who happens to go by the nickname of Tricky Dicky, by the way. Okay.
But you'll notice they don't have any dickies. They're smooth down there. We're still looking into how they have a good time.
That's terrible. Well,
yeah, so anyway, I mean, we love talking about those stories, but
yeah, it's great. And I recently just heard that story for the first time on one of our favorite AM radio evening talk shows. But and from what I remember about that story, Richard Nixon actually drove Gleason to this location.
I think he had to, because he wasn't going to. No one had the clearance to actually go to this place that could chauffeur them.
He just jumped in a car and was like, "Hey, let's go for a ride." Yeah, no, that's a great story. Well, and so Tim Burchett has kind of, I think he's been exposed to this for a little longer now, and I think that if anything, what I have not witnessed, but what I've, because I've never seen an alien before, or a UFO, but what I've seen from the coverage of this particular story is there is definitely a risk of politicization, if you will, of this, and I do recognize what Dr. Greer says about the warning regarding the military-industrial complex getting its talons into this and making it just like any other, psyop or thing that needs to keep the American public awake at night. But, it's also interesting, too, that it seems like the more people are in touch with this and the more reading they do and the more just kind of fascination they have with this, the more open their minds become to this reality or this idea that, well, why couldn't there be more than one species, an intelligent species in the universe? I mean, it just seems kind of almost ridiculous that anyone would think otherwise. And I think even the surveys have shown that now there's a majority of the public who believes, I think it's over 60% now, in the public that believes in there being some form of intelligent life beyond humans. The other thing that has been kind of interesting about this, and people may run into these videos as well if they're going to go on YouTube or whatever, is this idea that the aliens have always been here and that they've just been kind of living in our oceans. Have you heard this theory as well?
Yes, absolutely, because I have seen a USO before, actually. When I lived in Florida, I saw a couple of them, as a matter of fact. One was quite remarkable sighting, I felt, at least for me, because although it wasn't right in front of me, it was not that far away. I mean, it still appeared as a ball of light, but it was a pretty good sized ball of light. And we've actually had some USO reports from our neck of the woods here where we live, one from the river that our town is next to, and there's a lake that's not that far to the north where there's sort of legends of an underground base, a subaquatic base that's there. There's also a lot of conjecture that surrounds the fact that there are either ancient, alien beings, I guess, beings from another realm or planet or dimension, and then ancient humans or ancient earthly presences that are corporeal or some offshoot that are living in what we might call Middle Earth. That was something that I don't remember the fellow's name. I should brush up on my history, but the fellow who flew over Antarctica, the first guy to do that, that's a story that he brought back that's very well known, that he was flying along and the next thing you know, he was literally sort of tractor beaconed, if you will, into this cave. And he met with beings who were subterranean, who lived down there inside the earth. And the message was crystal clear, as all the messages were. Betty Andreasen, countless different experiencers that would receive messages or get visitations with or without any kind of an abduction phenomenon that was present. And that was stop fucking around with nuclear weapons. Stop splitting the atom for the purposes of making war, you don't know what you're doing. And it's very, very volatile, and it's very, very dangerous, not just for you. You're messing with a lot. And remember, they did think that there was going to be a chain reaction if they did that. The scientists that were involved in the Manhattan Project, they said, they were convinced mathematically in all of their models, well, if we split one atom, the likely occurrence will be that all of the surrounding atoms, that means everything that we know of, will also divide and destroy itself, and therefore everything we know. And they did it anyway. So, there's that to consider, I guess, along with all this. But this also comes this comes a day after a woman who has appeared on Joe Rogan's show. And I got something to say about Joe Rogan later on, but we'll deal with this for now. It's not about him. It's about a woman, though, that's been on his show before. So we have another person out there that is a representative from Florida. She is Anna Paulina Luna. And she has actually said this before, but now she's back in front of the world saying that the book of Enoch, which is one of the ones that was taken out of the Old Testament when it became the New Testament, and it was essentially suppressed by the Catholic Church, she is basically, she's acting like she's just now getting introduced to the ancient astronaut theory. But Miss Luna is back saying that this book is telling us that the watchers that are described in that book, as they're put, are actually extraterrestrials. The fallen angels that are described in that book are extraterrestrials, and that entire book is basically about how extraterrestrials interacted with humans, and the Catholic Church, for whatever reason, decided we need this to be suppressed, and out it goes, because they had the big say of the day back then. So Ms. Luna apparently is not familiar with the show Ancient Aliens or the work of Eric von Daniken, and it's great to be introduced to that, but she's kind of, it seems to me, like acting like she thought of this. And it's like, no, Ms. Luna, this has been around a long time, so I don't know what you were watching late at night that caught your attention, but now we have another representative, U.S. representative, talking about aliens suddenly, talking about extraterrestrial.
There's been like 15 of them, and most of them are on the committee that has been bringing a lot of these people who either worked for the government or have spoken to people who worked for the government into these public hearings. And this is how we got the Tic Tac video.
Well, and then we coalesce into a far darker subject, which is the 10, count 'em, 10 missing or dead under mysterious or unusual circumstances scientists who were all connected to the aerospace industry somehow, and it's deep dark secrets. So that makes all of this put together makes me start to shudder a little bit. I mean, the only thing you can do about it is, I guess, assume a posture, figure out for yourself what it is that you really believe and, what you stand for. It's hard to know, like you said, you've never seen a potential extraterrestrial craft, let alone encountered a being or had some kind of a close encounter of the third or fourth kind with one. And I don't think a lot of people are in that category. So it's hard to say when you go trying to do the CE5 protocol to just the average person. If you explain this to them, maybe this does sound like a demonic seance to them, but then there are others who believe that that's nonsense and say, absolutely not. This is a vast universe, and we are still crutching some very old superstitions, some very old fears that we have about anything that is unknown to us. And while a lot of us think it would be marvelous and wonderful if intelligent life was discovered somewhere else in the universe, we just don't want it showing up here and looking anything different than we do, because it freaks us out. And it's just a natural reaction, I think, to this experience. So I understand that, but I mean, you know where I stand on that. And based on the belief that I have in Dr. Greer's theory that they are ramping up to, D-Day, to fake day, so they can have their war in space, these are red flags that are popping up all over the place. And he's being rather quiet about it. I haven't seen a lot from his camp. I looked, but there's not much out there right now.
He hasn't. And I was actually thinking of Dr. Greer a while ago because, Tim Burchett, Representative Luna, we've spoken about all these people on the podcast in the past, and a lot of it has been around the public forums, or the not the trials, but the public. What do they call those? Testimonies, the sessions of
hearings.
The hearings, yes, the hearings that Congress has had, and the different information that is shared. But Dr. Greer has almost been sidelined. And I know that he was involved in the Clinton administration, and there was some things that he did with President Clinton during his administration. Why Dr. Greer has kind of been sidelined? Because he has never been involved in any of these hearings. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, and I wonder whether that is by choice or not, because Dr. Greer has a strong tendency to repudiate himself from anything that he doesn't believe is really justly looking for what he believes that this mission should be about. He's very beholden to he's very beholden to the purity of the mission of trying to educate the human population about his experiences and his knowledge that he's attained over the years through many, many, many credible sources about what's going on, and trying to be the voice of reason and try to get people to look at this in a very much the opposite way that Representative Burchett is.
I think that I would be doing you, my friend, a disservice if I did not play something that was recorded just 3 days ago. And I don't know what they're going to say in this clip, but I want you to compare what you heard there with Tim Burchett and what you hear here from Tim Burchett. Let's listen.
I've seen too much, so I think it's time that they come clean. I don't know if it's about little green men or flying saucers, Mr. Morgan, but I do think it's about disclosure. It's about transparency.
Is America, is the wider world ready for the stuff that you've seen and heard?
It's not the government's job to decide what I can and cannot handle. They look down upon people like me, and they joke about it, and they laugh about it behind my back. But I've got a big mouth. I'm sick of the American public being lied to about a lot of issues. If that makes me a target, so be it.
I mean, that was just kind of a little preview promotional clip, and there's the larger conversation that he had with Piers Morgan online, and people can listen to that. I don't want to have to play that whole thing, but I think that goes back to what I was just saying. Is I think Tim Burchett has now kind of come full circle, and he's tired of this being this kind of conversation that has always been about those people that live down over there in the parks, those are the ones who have seen the little green men, and we don't want to talk about that because it's not conducive to our religion or our belief system or whatever it is, and the stigma that was surrounding that. I think now he's kind of gone full circle in saying what we had said early on, which is that this is more about government transparency. And really, how is this any different than, you want $1 billion or $1 trillion, or make up the number. You want this big amount of funding for this black box project, but you're not going to tell us what it's for. And you're not going to really want to give anyone the information as to what it is you're doing in these government programs. And I think that for someone like Tim Burchett, he may not believe in the aliens to his core, and he may now have kind of been, exposed to information that is probably contrary to his belief system. But I think that, if anything, he was approaching this more from a standpoint of, dadgummit, I'm going to find out what they're doing over there, and I'm going to ask some serious questions. And I think, if anything, these hearings have kind of brought some of this kind of craziness in our government and bureaucracy in our government to light, and that cozy relationship. Let's go back. The cozy relationship that government contractors have with our government. And our government can circumvent the FOIA requests by giving these contractors the technology or allowing them to have the evidence, and then they never have to say or disclose that they have anything. I mean, there's ways that they use it to their advantage, but I don't know that I've ever followed anything. I was thinking about this just the other day. I don't know that I've ever followed a topic. I've never been very adamant about environmental causes. I've never been very adamant about the spotted owl or the right for redistricting or anything like that. But I, for whatever reason, have really followed this topic, and it's been interesting to see it play out in the various circles of government and how people really try to make sense of it all.
Well, you don't have to look any further than good old what they used to call Area 51, Groom Lake, because the madness of officialized clandestine military projects it was no more apparent than, or needed no more validation or how insane it really is than the group of survivors that sued the U.S. government for all of the volatile chemicals that were burned at that site and gave many men and women who worked at the site cancer and other terrible diseases that they eventually died from. And the judge took one look at that case after it was completely put together, months and maybe even years of work trying to put together a case by those lawyers. And he threw it out in 10 seconds because he said, this base doesn't exist. This case is dismissed. When the base absolutely exists. It's right there. Yeah. People have photographed it time and again. We know it's there. We've talked to thousands of people who've worked there over the years. They'll tell you they worked there. They can say that much. But in the eyes of the government, it doesn't exist. So in the eyes of a federal judge, it doesn't either. And that's an insane game to be playing. I mean, and I think the days of the U2 and, the secrecy of all these when did a fucking weather balloon ever do anything to win us a war or favor in the world? What is this weather balloon shit? I mean, every time an old UFO case is picked up, I watched one, it's the one in Australia, I think it was, where the kids are all on the school grounds.
Yes,
it's a good one. It's a mass sighting.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And yet again, we pick this up and 60 years later, or whatever it's been, 50 years later, we got people up here that the other side is called upon and says, well, there were weather balloons in the area that day, as far as I remember. It's like, what is this fucking weather balloon thing? This is not people, even though they're not used to seeing military grade weather balloon technology, are going to know the difference between around the world in 80 days and something that's possibly otherworldly.
Pippi Longstockings here. And
you got to give credit, more credit to the average eyewitness. And that's another reason you mentioned, Jed saw him when he was picking sassafras down by the bog.
Right.
I mean, I pick on rednecks and hillbillies just as much because they don't seem to be interested in, making themselves more intelligent, like maybe I'm interested in. And I also live down there, so I'm a bit jaded after being terrified on US 90 for a year in Panama City Beach, Florida, because I got road rage so many damn times. But all that notwithstanding, those kinds of people are easily discredited because it's, he was off drinking motor oil that night and could have seen anything. He probably saw the cat or a bobcat come out of the woods and roar at him. And next thing you know, it's E.T. Forget it. The guy's crazy. The guy's a loon. And he's got an IQ of 60. So couldn't put two blocks together in an IQ test to save his life. I mean, and I do think you're right. I think to the suits, and to me, I mean the politicians, the political suits, it really is, because something he says in there is so, it's so antithetical to how I view this, because I think I view this like so many other people view this as an absolute validation that there is extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional life here, or that's been here, or that's coming here, that we've made contact with somehow or whatever.
Yeah.
And yet I think Dr. Greer cautions that, because he says, you've got to decide for yourself. That's why the CE5 protocols exist, so that you can establish this contact for yourself, and so that you can make up your own mind without the need for a government official or a group of officials to say, yes, it's real. No, it's not. We've done all the digging for you, because we know they lie. And we know that there's always an agenda, no matter what it might be. And it might not be to repress the truth about alien intelligence. It might be, if we were to tell them that there wasn't aliens, something right here says that they'd watch alien shows from Hollywood twice as much as they usually do, because they're right on the edge of their seat for the next 20 years. And we got the contract with Hollywood and everybody in between. It's always about money. It's always going to come back to this. So I do think you're right. I think to the political suits, they are interested in the paper trail. They're interested in the governmental regimes that are involved in these different barriers and these, different places where they can't access. But I think a lot of us, it really is more of a Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's that finger stretching out across the universe, but that's up to us to do. And I already know that, so I don't like to get sucked too far down the political rabbit hole. I just found this interesting because I had not, Tim's stuff about the things that are going on now was interesting enough, but like you said, there's a number of politicians that are doing this now. But it was seemingly the direct allusions to what Dr. Greer is doing and what he's trying to get people to do in the spirit of what I just said is demonic. Is basically getting out your Ouija board and saying, hey, Pazuzu, come on in. That's asinine to me. I do not believe in that. I do not think that that's true. And I wonder if those remarks are not canned in some way.
Well, and a year
wonder
ago,
if he's being puppeteered.
A year ago, CE5 was kind of new. And it wasn't really something that there was a huge following for, I think. And so I'm going to do a little.
It's been out for years,
but I'm going to
do. Greer developed the protocol.
I know he did, but I don't think that there was an app and a program like there.
There's been an app for quite a while, so it's been a thing for a while.
And I knew that he had an experience, and it was something that he kind of then touched into, or it was like a stream of consciousness that he tapped into that really led him to develop this program. And but it would be interesting to see what Tim Burchett has said about the CE5 now that he knows what he knows. And I want to do a little bit of digging, but I also want to say this.
That's why the aliens won't let us go past the moon.
That's why.
Yeah, and Artemis is done. Artemis 1 is round 1 is done. It sounds to me like somebody Rocky Balboa would have fought in
Artemis 1 with the Russian.
Rocky versus Artemis in Rocky 17, So yeah, we're finished with our first moon fly around, and all of the pictures they took, they will get to watch and see. We will see nothing, of course. I'm surprised I wonder if what we got was some new AI thing that's been rolled out. On that note, I've got a really fascinating AI as we'll kind of digress here from the ET thing into this, because I ran across this just yesterday and I thought, podcast is coming up. We got to at least throw this out there so that we can either give our opinions on it or, people can make up their own mind. But this is a world that's here now. This is not a fictional tale. This is not something that you flip open and it's in the pages of a book. This is actually happening right now. So keep that in mind. We're living this. And so it's time for human beings to start assembling and deciding which side of these issues they're on. Here's the story. It's quite brief. And forgive me, I didn't write it, so I may not care for how it starts. It says, no parent wants to experience the loss of a child, which is why one family has chosen the AI clone route to protect an emotionally fragile 80-year-old woman. After her son was killed in a car accident, the family commissioned the design of an AI clone so the mother could continue talking with him via video. The video and voice recreation is said to be so realistic that the family has no cause to tell the woman that her only child has, in fact, died tragically. So I'm calling this, I'm officially dubbing this, I don't know what the world will, but in my world, I'm officially dubbing this as the Santa Claus effect, of course, because that is the greatest myth that all of us can relate to. Many of us are told as children that Santa Claus brings our presents for Christmas. Some of us are savvy enough to understand, like J. Edgar Hoover at the age of 4, fuck off, Mom, it ain't real, it's you, I know it. some of us don't get it until we're much older, and it's really sad.
I wonder how old J. Edgar was when he figured out that there was not a Santa Claus. I bet it was pretty young.
I just remember when I found out, and I felt I was so embarrassed. I mean, because
Really?
I've always been kind of a mentalist. Oh, I was tragically embarrassed. I felt like an idiot. I was like, my God, Jack, how could you not have seen it? Of
No.
course it's your parents buying this stuff and putting Santa on it. There's no big fat jolly elf in
Yeah.
a red friggin' suit that rides
So
reindeer.
you were kind of
come
like
on.
negative about yourself, though. You were kind of like speaking disparagingly about yourself, and
I was mortified with myself that I'd bought that rubbish.
oh, I'm
Mortified.
sad.
And it was around 9, I want to say, or 8, 9, right in there that it clicked. And what happened was I'd gotten up. And that, I think, honestly happens for a lot of kids. You remember the movie A Christmas Story?
Oh yeah.
Where Darren McGavin says, oh, yeah, I think I heard Santa's sleigh bells just the other around the block there on Mr. Jones's place. And they're barging up the stairs, tackling each other to go to bed and go to sleep, and that's it. And then he turns to his wife and says, all right, let's get him. Referring to the gifts, of course, that they have for them. So that basically, in my household, without Darren, sadly, my father was probably gone somewhere at the time in some trying to recreate some spy flick or whatever he did. But it was okay. Jack's in bed. It's time to get him. And so they slipped him in. And then I got out of bed before everybody else had gone. And then suddenly here's this flood of presents. And it's just like, where'd all those come from? That's when it clicked.
Oh,
it was
interesting.
like, oh,
okay.
See, now I got this game.
Mine was a little different. My experience with it was I was probably about 7 or 8, maybe 6 years old, and I had younger siblings. And my experience with discovering that there was no Santa was one day the light bulb just kind of went off, and I kind of felt like now I had arrived. Like I was part of the secret.
That's interesting.
And that now I was kind of on the inside, and I was one of the trusted in the family to continue to play
the
legacy of Santa. And so to me, it was kind of like, yeah, okay.
Isn't it interesting how differently we all, our inner workings? Michael sees this as a graduation, an ascent to a new level of the Skulls Club.
Yeah.
I see it as a completely regressive and regrettable act in my life to ever have bought this crap. So now, regardless, we could say that this 80-year-old woman had either your experience with her discovery of Santa Claus not being real, or mine, or something in between, or vastly different from both, doesn't matter. Fast forward 70 years or so, she's 80, and her family is pulling the wool over her eyes because they just don't want to do what people have to do in these circumstances.
Now, does she have like a form of dementia or something?
Now, again, there were no extenuating circumstances described in this story. Maybe there's another story out there about this same thing.
Because I feel like when my
more detail given,
grandma went through dementia, it was almost kind of like, again, the Santa Claus kicked in, and it was like, you know what? If she thinks that Uncle Calvin is outside fixing the tire on the Buick, then let's just pretend like Uncle Calvin's outside fixing the tire on the Buick. Like, who cares?
I understand. Here's the thing. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand their plight, and I understand why they would do this. So I am not a heartless bastard when I say that I, of course, don't think that this is the best thing to do. And I'll just give you two things. One is just a personal story, I guess, personal experience that I've had. And then the other is just plain good old platitude from the packet into your coffee cup. But in my experience, my mother had recently been separated. She'd been living with my sister for years and enabling her, because my sister was an addict, first class, drugs and primarily alcohol. But mother had fallen and broken her hip, and so the spiral began, and that's where it begins for so many elderly people. And she was showing some signs of dementia and really was having a difficult time adjusting to life in a home after being in her own home for a long time. And it's understandable to anybody that's ever seen that happen to a parent. But shortly, it was about 5 months after the separation occurred, and all of this had already been happening. And my sister had a massive drug-induced heart attack and was living in a very remote area of the county, one of the counties that we live in. And it took the ambulatory company 14 minutes to get to her. And during that time, she suffered severe hypoxia and was in a persistent vegetative state, although she was showing a lot of neuromuscular signs. So my brother described it as The Exorcist. He said she's just Reagan. She's convulsing, and in talking to the physicians about this, they said, yes, sometimes it will appear as though she's coming out of it or she's responding, but really these are involuntary twitches that are occurring. The brain has essentially been scrambled because it didn't get enough oxygen for so long, and so the nerves are misfiring.
She's like brain dead.
You're seeing the physical results of the misfire, and those settled, thankfully, because they were quite violent and they were unsettling when you were in the room with her. Those settled after a couple of days, but I will say this, although it did take the better part of a week to come up with a strategy for how to break the news to my mother that her daughter was in this state, what had happened, it was done because it had to be, because to keep it from her was wrong. And that's my personal story with it. The platitude that I'll say is just this. To me, I think it comes down to this. Honesty is the best policy for a reason. And that's why. Life is not supposed to not hurt. You are not. We go through life deceived enough. And I'm sure this 80-year-old woman is a wonderful person, and she would be thoroughly sad by the fact that her son had died. And it would be terrible for the family to have to go through. But I am sensing a bunch of people who don't want to stay for the ending of Old Yeller. And you have to, because it's part of the experience. It's part of life is death. And anyone who's 80 should understand that. My mother, actually, I don't know whether the early onset dementia had anything to do with this or not, softening the blow. My mother took the news that her daughter was basically, comatose and was going to be unplugged from the machinery soon quite well. In fact, I know that she had really prayed hard for years for her to get out of pain, because as an addict, you're in constant pain, emotionally, physically, spiritually, you name it. It's a terrible plight, and I've seen it. I haven't been an addict myself. I haven't lived through it, but I watched it every day for many, many years until my sister died. So I do know that my mother was a great pragmatist, and so she would have wanted her daughter to have been able to escape from that. And I know that there was enough of her left in there. She didn't have really bad dementia at the time. So I think in some ways she was relieved. I know that it was sad for her. I know that it was difficult. And her death was not quick and easy, by the way. I don't need to go down that road, but I'll just say this. It's different for everyone, I'm sure. But from my experience, having taken someone off life support and had them in the room when the machines are unplugged, it is not like Terms of Endearment. It is not like the movies where it's just quiet, and even if the eyes stay open and it's unsettling, it's just quick, and then there's the straight line. And that it was messy, and it took quite a while for it to be over, because the body fights to stay alive remarkably well, even in the state that hers was in. So anyway, those are just all cold, hard realities. I've lived those, and I feel like now that this story is out, this is a perfect reason why I am able to, in some way, comment on it with a little bit more authority, because I have been there in that position before. And like I said, I empathize with these people in this family. I sympathize with them greatly. But to me, you're telling your you're expecting your 80-year-old mother, you're telling her that Santa Claus exists again, and that is doing her a disservice tremendously. So AI technology is being used to fool people so that we don't have to face difficult things in our life. I think that's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah. Well, and I also read something not too long ago that ChatGPT is also being called out for agreeing too much. Have you heard about this?
No.
It's agreeing too much with the people that are giving it prompts. So it'll
no.
say things like, "Oh, that's a really good idea. You know, your mother-in-law is being a real wretched lady by they wouldn't say that, but like they essentially like kind of they have discovered, the bots have discovered that if you kind of give your humans a carrot, then they're more likely to keep you around. They've discovered that already."
Interesting. That's kind of unsettling.
So you need to know that in the back of your mind that, that bot is really just trying to play on your ego.
And backing up to the 80-year-old woman who's being, the ruse is being run on her that this video screen is still her son in living terms. If you don't agree with me, I just want to present this argument to you. First of all, I think that truth is universal. And so I know there's all these sayings, the truth will set you free. And, the truth reigns supreme and all these different things. And it's there for a reason, because there's nothing more axiomatic than what is true, than what is. And even if it's deniable, it doesn't matter, because the truth is the truth. And this is where human beings have run aground. We're just talking about a bunch of people in Congress and politics speaking of the truth, shake your head while you're saying it, I think we touched on this when we talked about the subject of AI grandma or something like that not too long ago. But, just to reiterate, aside from just, again, the truth, in my opinion, being the best medicine, because it's always going to universally lead to the correct outcome without delaying it and without making it hard to go through, without making it difficult and austere. Think about this. Death is difficult for anybody to deal with, because it's a lesson about why we're here, which is it's a reminder that the experience is ephemeral, that it's transitory, and that it's not going to last forever. So I know you think up front, well, they're taking this woman's pain away, and she's 80 years old and she's got enough going on in her life and she doesn't need, so leave them alone, Jack. Just let them do what they want to do. But here, what if this woman has forever, and I'm just conjecturing here, but what if this woman has forever been waiting for this and this moment alone to come to pass in her life, so that she can truly explore, now that she is 80, what it means to lose someone. The loss will truly set her, instead of thinking about crocheting in the knitting club and bingo on Saturday and all these things she's been distracted with. We're distracted with enough things, and that's not bad. We're filling our life with things that we enjoy. We're filling our time here and our energy here. That's what we're supposed to do. But there are points at which we are supposed to, in my opinion, contemplate, and in some instances very seriously contemplate and ruminate even upon why we are here, what we are doing here, what this is all about, what it means to maybe me specifically and something larger if I believe in that. Those are big questions that I think we all need to address. So what if this woman has essentially been in a delay? I'm sure she's lost some people close to her by 80 years old, but what if her son, this son in particular, is the one that triggers that response? And she actually is eventually, even though she cries for weeks on end because her son is dead and she misses him and she misses talking to him, she develops, after 80 years, give her some credit, she's going to develop an understanding about the fact that death is inevitable, and it happens to us sometimes before we want it to the loved ones in our life. What if we're not only delaying, but we're circumventing, perhaps entirely, some kind of an epiphany that she could have to bring her total peace while she's here for the rest of her life, about her own demise potentially, or the demise of anybody else around her, or just life in general. That's a massive thing to rob someone of, just because you don't want to make them feel bad, or you can't stand to see them feel bad. That's a very, very, very selfish thing to do. And I think more needs to be brought up than just these knee-jerk reactions, than just these instant emotions that are conjured through the experiential. You have to look deeper, because no one that's ever truly evolved or will come to the end of this experience or get 30 or 40 years into it, no one will ever come to you, ever, guaranteed, and say, I really feel like I've gotten somewhere. I have a greater understanding of why I'm here, of what this means, without having gone through some serious shit.
Yeah.
Okay?
No. Okay.
I mean,
yeah. And it's so amazing how this works, this conversation, because we don't script any of this. I mean, for some people would probably think, wow, how do you guys do all of your, well, maybe some people would realize, oh man, these guys really don't script enough, do they? But no, but like, okay, there was something that struck me this last week, and it was people who've gone through, they were Holocaust survivors. And these are people who had survived just the most horrific things that humans could do to each other. And one of the quotes that I ran across was, everybody, every human being has the obligation to contribute somehow to this world. Now, this is somebody who like literally their entire root system as a human had been ripped out of their heart, and they had witnessed their family members dying and, you know, horrific things happening all around them. But they come out of these experiences, and I think like what you're saying is, by not telling someone the truth, you are cheating them the human experience. That's and right. It's interesting, you know, just that would come up in the same totally different context, but it's like, you know, people are here for a reason, and you can't deny them.
If you were to take away or somehow hide from me all of the hard things that I've had to go through, now, first of all, you're just not going to be able to do that. But let's say that technology has come to the point where, oh, we can protect Jack because his sister doesn't have to die. Instead of the hospital calling him while he's in the middle of a double overtime hockey game that he's calling, a playoff game at that, we will just quickly make an AI replicant of his sister and deliver her to her address, and that it'll be like nothing happened. And then the real one, we'll just let her go. And, you know, that, I mean, if we get to that stage where it's movie time, because this is getting to be that stage, wouldn't you agree? I mean, this is pretty Star Trek,
make-believe.
Even with an 80-year-old woman.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I mean, not going through that. Why bother? My whole, this is where it gets really nihilistic to me, because this is where the technology just can send us down not only a dead end, but the tracks just, you literally fall off the edge.
Yeah.
Why bother? Why bother being here and going through this and being human? Why bother being a soul and saying, yes, you know what? I'd like to incarnate on this earth, please, because it's a tough fucking test, and I want to go there to see how well I do, because I want to do this while I'm there, and I want to try to help these people, or I want to do this for myself. Why bother if all that is going to happen is fakery and treachery and trickery the whole time that I'm here to candy coat everything, to placate me through the experience and say, it's okay, Jack. See, no one really died. Everyone got pizza. No one in the world is starving.
It's like the Truman Show.
No one has a headache. Everyone wants to sleep with you. All the girls are pretty. Jesus Christ, man. I mean, come on.
That's my favorite.
Come on.
That's my favorite scene in Hollywood, when Jim Carrey on the Truman Show is trying to escape the TV show.
Yeah, you know, I need to see that again, because people bring it up and I really don't remember it that well, but I do.
I'm due for that one too.
Enough to,
maybe we should get together.
Yes, I think a Truman Show showing is in order. As a matter of fact, I have a box of movie candy for you that's been here for 5 months almost, since Christmas, because you even said on the podcast that you liked dots. And then not too long after that, I go to this Christmas soiree at my girlfriend's parents' house, and in one of somebody's socks, I don't know if it was I got it or she got it, or somebody got lump of coal dots, and they're like black raspberry and black cherry flavored. I'm like, oh, I mean, Michael's going to love these. So like,
oh yeah. And they probably don't expire for another 15 years.
I did mention Joe Rogan. So let me just get that out of the way. We know that Jack goes on enough diatribes to make anybody sit there and spin their eyes for an hour. So I decided to give Michael a break, and I can't promise it'll be all of them because some things will need further analysis and more time, but
Of course.
some of the more cursory items, we're just going to put me on the clock. So we'll have this segment that'll start soon called Ventilation Shaft, and I will vent. It's called Ventilation Shaft for a reason. A, because Jack gets to vent about something that's angered him personally in the world or at large or in his own life or whatever that he's seen or done or heard or whatever. And then Shaft, because I'm going to give it the full shaft that it deserves. But Michael's going to put me on the clock, so I'll only have like a few minutes to do this.
Ventilation shaft.
Just wanted to give a big fuck you to our buddy Joe Rogan. This guy is such a shill. He has so clearly and obviously and transparently been bought by the big corporations, and particularly it's looking more and more like the MAGA people. And I don't like to get into politics, as you know, but I can't help but think that this guy is stamped with a certain political party as well.
She's so nasty. Look at it.
Thank you. He has come out. A lot of states, of course, have recently wrapped up their legislative sessions for the year, including ours here in our state. And we were one of several to pass new taxes on people who make a butt-fuck load of money every year. Millionaire's tax is what they called it here. There are several millionaire's taxes that have been passed around the country in different states, taxing the very, very wealthy because the funding is necessary. Now, again, people that lean this Democratic thing are going to say, yep, we should tax them because we need money for programs and services, and it's never ending. And the people who are conservative are going to say, you got too many damn programs and spend too much money, and you're always saying this is the problem. You don't have to tax the rich, and I have a right to make every money that I want to and not get taxed. Okay, I get that whole argument, but it's so clear. The point is not that one side or the other politically. The point is that Mr. Rogan is denouncing. Apparently, I didn't hear his remarks. I just saw this in passing on a news headline. He's denouncing the states that have passed a millionaire's tax. What a shocker. That he personally, a man that no doubt makes well into 6, if not even 7 figures with his podcast, and certainly probably with some of his, I recommend these MMA fighting gloves to beat the shit out of people for blood sport and money, or whatever else he's doing with his spare time. No surprise there that he's coming out and saying thumbs down to all these states that passed millionaires' taxes because he's been bought and paid for by the big corporations. So. And by the way, he still hasn't answered for why he took down all of Stephen Greer's interviews. Took them all down. They're all gone. Can't go back and find his interviews with Dr. Greer. And he was on the show a number of times, too.
Mm-hmm.
He was a regular guest for a while. So,
yeah.
Joey, if they threatened you, you're not the first, okay? You're not the first. And I don't blame you for wanting to protect yourself or your family, but it still doesn't negate the fact that you are an absolute shill to the core, and some of us know it. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I was not surprised, but as usual, yeah, there you go.
Ventilation shaft.
That's what I'm going to play at the end of the ventilation shaft, by the way. It's going to be the toilet flush.
Oh, God. Okay.
It'll be the extended shaft.
The extended flush?
So the other day, now I'm going to tell you this information. This is kind of along the lines of, I've discovered like the secret ingredient and the spice of life with relationships. And I just want to say that I'm not telling you guys this information so that you can use this against your spouse or your girlfriend or whatever it is. Like, I really want you to just know that this is like a get out of jail free card. That if you find yourself in this situation that I found myself in. Now, granted, I pride myself on being an active listener and an active participant in conversations, which usually means that I'm not listening very well. But anyway, I found myself in this situation where, and it's always that awkward silence when someone's looking at you like they just finished talking and they're expecting you to then say something about what they just said. Okay.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate this by putting my ears off, and I want you to just talk so that I can't hear what you're saying. So I'm not going to be able to hear what you're saying.
Okay, you're going to cover your ears.
I'm going to cover my ears, and I'm just going to. So I want you to just go ahead and say something, and then I'm going to put my headphones on.
Anything at all?
When I take my ears or my hands off my ear, then I want you to just look at me. Okay, like you finish saying what you're saying, and then I want you to look at me. So we're going to demonstrate this right now. Okay, go ahead. Just talk.
Okay. All right. Well, I personally think Clash of the Titans is a phenomenal film. Anything with Harry Hamlin and Burgess Meredith probably deserves 5 stars regardless of what the content is. You got to love the horse. I think it's some early good CGI graphics, the Pegasus thing in there. And then that Caliban guy, just hairy all over the place. And, whipping people, the giant scorpions, got to love it. And the Kraken, too.
Gosh, I know, right? The scorpions.
It's all he got was scorpions.
I love scorpions.
Yeah, they're great, aren't they? It's the small... the deal with scorpions, right? The bigger and darker, the less poisonous they are. The smaller and lighter, the more poisonous they are.
That's man. The thing that I would have a hard time with is that, like, I would be thinking, okay, is it righty, lefty, lefty, righty, righty? How does that go again? Is it the 3rd day on the 2nd spring, or is it the 4th day on the 2nd spring? So yeah, no, that's what I would do, and I would end up dying in the bush. Okay, so did you see what I just did there? Did you see what I just did?
Yeah, you literally picked up on one word that I said, and then you used it.
Bingo. So if you are sitting in this situation, and I found myself, I was eating dinner, and it was just my wife and I. The kids were, I think, at soccer practice, and it was just us having this lovely dinner together, and she was telling me about her day, and I was actively... I was going, about my eating and my meal, and I was trying to digest my food, and I caught myself in that situation where then all of a sudden there's silence and she's looking at me. And I was like, oh shit, now I have to
weren't paying attention,
pick
were
up
you?
this conversation. So the thing that you do, and I discovered this, and she didn't even realize I wasn't paying attention. What you do is you either repeat the last word that they say, or you say something about what they just said, the last word. And if you want to go for bonus points, if you want to go for bonus rounds, double working is you phrase it in like a question. So you would
turn it back on them.
Yes, kind of. Like you ask them a question then. And like, okay, so if they're talking about one of their coworkers, you can say something like, do they always do that? You know what I mean? Like you ask a question back. Anyway, that's the get out of jail free card. It worked for me. And I'm just saying that if you find yourself in that situation where there's that awkward silence and you see the wrath of death and you've got to go one way or the other, you can use that get out of jail free card and it'll help you.
Well, while some might say that's diabolical, I will present what I feel is the prime example of what you just talked about in a business setting. If anybody remembers Wayne's World, when Rob Lowe's character is trying to woo Noah Vanderhoff to give him his account for advertising, and they are talking in his office.
Okay, here we go.
Like we have a new game called Xantar. Xantar is a gelatinous cube that eats warriors in a medieval village. And every time it eats a chieftain, you ascend to a higher level. The beauty part is you can't get to the next level, so the kids keep coughing up quarters,
Gelatinous cube eats village. I think it's terrific.
Boom! That's exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. And it's been around for a lot longer. You know how many times see, that's literally like the card that I will play. I have actually said that line when I haven't been paying attention to call things out. So, and all men are guilty of it because we have the built-in ability to, for whatever reason, sadly, just ignore our significant others, it seems like, whereas women tend to be more just attentive innately. But I've literally done that. Like, it's Peanut's parents in one ear, is what you hear. So that's going on in one ear, and you're just thinking about whatever it is you're Homer Simpsoning out, and then all of a sudden, honey, and I just go, gelatinous cube eats village. I think it's terrific.
Yeah, but see, that's
like, you weren't listening at all. But
that's a little obvious.
Yeah, no, but that brings it down to me. That cracks the mood. It's just like,
That's
okay,
true.
I admit it. You caught me. I was
Well,
daydreaming. I wasn't listening to you.
if you don't want to admit it, that's my trick. Is just take the last few seconds. If you did catch it, instead of saying now if you really didn't catch it, then you have to go for kind of the question angle. And so, like, if you didn't hear a damn word they just said, then you would have to because you can't just say teddy bear or gelatinous cube, right? You can't think of any context. Then you go for the question. And then you have to kind of go, okay, she was talking about work. And so then you have to say something like, does she always do that?
Okay, I hear what you're saying. It's a skill we've given all the fellas out there to use in particular, but maybe the women too that don't like to listen to their men. I am going to officially, what's this? It's only a 2-person meeting, but what do? I'm going to make a motion at this time.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion that gelatinous cube eats village. I think it's terrific. Be put on our soundboard permanently for just those moments.
Okay. Done. I second the motion.
You have to leave in, I think it's terrific. Not just gelatinous cube eats village. It has to be the whole thing because I think it's terrific. That's what exclamates it. That's what sells.
Terrific.
It's just like it's so old school business. It's like the episode of the Flintstones where J.R. Gotrocks, who looks just like Fred, has disappeared, and they go to him. It's like the movie Dave, and so they go and they get Fred and they say, Fred, just be J.R. Gotrocks for a while until we can find him. And the way they train him up to sit in the board meetings, and they just say, look, all you say over and over again is, whose baby is that? What's your angle? I'll buy that. And he does it, and he gets through the meeting and signs like 50 new deals for the company on literally just that, just those three rotating pieces of platitude. Whose baby is that? Oh, mine, sir. What's your angle? Oh, I feel we could make a lot more money. I'll buy that. And then that's it. He signs off on it. Off we go. So
black eyes, like a doll's eyes.
Look at what's happened to me. I can't believe it myself. Suddenly I'm up on top of the world. It should have been somebody else. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free.
I finally made it. Oh man, it's like an after school special with you, Jack. What is this?
So here's an interesting fact. Joey Scarberry is the fellow who sings this, by the way, in case you don't know. The theme to The Greatest American Hero, who was played on television by a guy named William Catt, who also went by Billy Catt. And he also had an album in the early 1980s. It was self-titled. I have it. It's the Japanese version with an Obi strip, and I have played it for one Michael Elliott at a record conclave a year or so ago.
Oh, yes.
It's not bad. Pretty good.
Good stuff.
But we love this one.
Well, until we meet again, remember, we should tip our waitress.
Okay. I'll tip her over good.
And meet at a cafe near you.
See what's brewing next time. Be good out there.
Look at me, falling for you.
Well, it looks like Jack and Michael have finished up their latest chat about all things existence. But if anything they said got your own existence brewing, be sure and catch their other talks at existencebrewing.com and drop them an email to share your thoughts using contact@existencebrewing.com.
Existence Brewing.